Hi, folks. Pre-pandemic, when I did not have a beard, I used one of those shavers that is like a subscription-based thing. And frankly, it was good, but it wasn't great. And I don't think I realized that it wasn't great until I got introduced to this razor. This is a Hensen razor. There is no subscription. There's no plastic. There's no... And I have since learned why this is such a better razor. And it turns out it is not the blade. Everybody apparently can make a very sharp blade. The problem is how far out from the razor the blade protrudes. Did I say that right? And with a Hensen razor, because these guys, this is from Hensen Shaving. This was a company that made parts for the International Space Station and the Mars, I think, rover. And they use CNC machines, computer numerical controlled machines, to make their razor stick out from the blade or I should say extend from the blade, from the razor itself. The blade extends from the razor just 0.0013 inches. And so like a diving board, if it extends out further, it wobbles. This does not wobble. It gives an incredibly close shave. Now, I'm only shaving here and here and here and here, but I don't even use shaving cream. It really is incredible. And it's got these like things to evacuate so that if you do have shaving cream, you don't have to bang it on the side of the sink all the time. You can just knock it right out. And the beauty of this razor is once you buy it, you keep it for life. There's no subscription service. There's no planned obsolescence. There's no plastic that you're adding into the atmosphere. In fact, none of it's plastic. It uses those non-proprietary dual edge blades. You get an old school shave. You just pop it right in there. And once you buy it, it costs about $2 to $3, or I should say $3 to $5 a year to keep shaving. And again, no plastic. I can't speak highly enough of this. Great Father's Day gift. Great not Father's Day gift. It's just a great gift. And head over to hensenshaving.com/majority. Use the code majority, and they'll give you a free package of 100 blades for free. You gotta take it and put it in your cart. But once you use that code majority at hensenshaving.com/majority, you'll get those blades for free. So basically, one-time purchase, and you're set. And you're actually not going to believe how relatively inexpensive this razor is. It's beautiful. They've got a couple of versions of it. And it literally will last the rest of your life. HENSONSHAVING, hensenshaving.com/majority. Use the code majority. Just a great gift. And now for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
If I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Wednesday, June 12th, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Judd Legum, proprietor of the popular information newsletter on SubStack, on the potentially criminally high rents we have. Then Usamah Andrabi, communications director and spokesperson for Justice Democrats, on the unprecedented amount of Republican money in Democratic primaries. Also on the program, Israel edging up to UN ceasefire proposal, but so far no deal and more carnage. Republican primaries yesterday. Across those, incumbents prevail, including Nancy Mace. And establishment and late-breaking Trump endorsee in the Nevada Senate race. Means Jackie Rosen is going to have a tighter race than she might have. Meanwhile, Hunter Biden convicted of 3 felonies in a deep state plot to make Donald Trump look bad. Inflation slows in May add a rate cut to the year. U.S. lifting the Leahy weapons ban restrictions on the Ukrainian Azov Brigade. More Alito audio where he bashes ProPublica for being too tenacious. Trump's former, potentially future defense secretary mulling mandatory military service. North Carolina passes a mask ban on public or private land, or property, I should say. Federal judge strikes down the Florida ban on health care for trans minors. And new report, microplastics believed to be in every human testicle, may be linked to decline in sperm count. Lastly, the jury finds Chiquita Banana liable for funding right-wing paramilitary in Colombia. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. Emma is off today, but she made a special request that I said it's Hump Day, just in case you did not know. Can we get that fan down a little bit too over there? Sorry, folks. I don't know if you can hear that, but I can. Getting a lot of IMs, as I predicted, on the microplastics being in everyone's testicles.
Speak for yourself.
Well, I mean, look, they did a study of 80 human testes in a wide range of ages of people, I guess, who had passed away. And they also did a bunch of dogs as well. And it was in every single human that they tested, and the dogs. And there's they couldn't necessarily measure this in humans, but they found in dogs and in mice that it's inhibiting sperm counts. So more on that later, but I guess I got to my get rid of plastics in my dishwasher a little bit late for that.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, I mean, it's probably for the best for me. I've got my 2 kids. I'm done. At least one hopes. There was an amazing response to the Hunter Biden convictions yesterday. I mean, this is, and let's be clear, we didn't really follow the Hunter Biden prosecution very much. We mentioned it. It's a story. There were a lot of people who were convinced that if Hunter Biden's exploits, and as far as I know, there is nothing that is in any way incriminating in that laptop that they found, to the extent that we know what was in it, because they've all kept it top secret, even though it was going to turn the tides of the last election. But there were clearly indications that Hunter Biden had a crack problem and I guess a propensity to hire sex workers, and I mean a lot of sort of sordid and what would formerly be very scandalous stuff.
Vice.
All of that seemed to have come out in the court case. I didn't follow it that clearly, but I heard a little bit of the testimony, and it does not seem to have in any way hurt Joe Biden's chances of re-election. And so it was interesting to see their reaction, because Donald Trump was out there saying, this is a two-tiered justice system. I'm being targeted for political reasons.
If it can happen to me, it can happen to you.
If it could happen to me, it could happen to anybody except for Hunter Biden. And now it's happened to Hunter Biden, and it's undercut a narrative for the Republicans. And here is Mike Johnson doing his best to obscure that fact just yesterday.
I have not had an opportunity. I've been in meetings all morning, so I haven't even seen. All I know is that he was found guilty, but I think that's appropriate.
And
Mr. Speaker, you
tomorrow with contempt of Congress. Do you have the votes for Merrick Garland tomorrow?
We'll be making the timing decision later this afternoon.
But Mr. Speaker, you've been saying,
I'm not sure about that yet.
but Mr. Speaker, you've been saying two-tier system of justice for some time. Here's the president's son being convicted on 3 counts. Doesn't that undercut your claims?
It doesn't. Every case is different, and clearly the evidence was overwhelming here. I don't think that's the case in the Trump trials, and all the charges that have been brought against him have been obviously brought for political purposes. Hunter Biden is a separate instance.
Who's going to win the congressional baseball game tomorrow?
But what is a two-tiered justice system? I guess
two-tiered against me.
There should be a Trump tier and then an everybody else tier.
And they're unfair to Trump, and everyone else gets a fair deal.
I think the Republican hive mind realized, like, that's just not going to cut it. We have to sort of like veer away from the two-tier thing, because that doesn't quite work. You can't really say it's not two-tiered. I mean, isn't the idea that one person gets prosecuted and another doesn't? Because otherwise you're just blaming the jury for being biased against Donald Trump in that instance. I mean, that's the thing. 12 jurors, one of whom gets his news from Truth Media, Truth Social. And I don't know even how you find someone like that. I mean, you really have to scour the country to find that person. And they found him guilty. So you really have to talk about prosecutions, right? It's unfair that some people get prosecuted and others don't. That's what a two-tier justice system means. And that's fallen flat. So they've come up with another answer. And that, of course, is that limited hangout.
Many on the left, they're now saying that the verdict is proof President Joe Biden has not weaponized the Justice Department against his enemies. On the other hand, Republicans, they strongly disagree, saying this case is misdirection to avoid going after Hunter for more serious charges of being an unregistered foreign agent. What do you think about that?
Well, I agree that this entire trial has been a major distraction from the real crimes of the corrupt Biden crime family.
Many on the left, they're now saying...
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's a limited hangout. The reason why they did this is they're throwing a little tiny bone to everybody to hide the genuine corruption.
They must be guilty of something so bad if they're willing to sacrifice shit.
So bad. You know what they should do? They should set up some type of like committee. Maybe you could call it like the House Oversight Committee, and get someone like, I don't know, James Comer, maybe, to investigate all of those real serious crimes that are actually being obscured by this conviction. Stephen Miller also settled on this argument. Remember, James Comer dug into this in the attempt to impeach Joe Biden, and all it ended up doing was getting one of his key witness arrested for perjury. Here is Stephen Miller. The gun charges are a giant misdirection, an easy op for DOJ to sell a pliant media that is all too willing to be duped. Don't be gaslit. This is all about protecting Joe Biden and only Joe Biden.
He's willing to throw his kid under the bus.
Oh, yeah.
Protect that what?
Yes.
$50,000.
All those people in the DOJ. We're gonna deploy Operation Small Guppy to protect the big fish.
Hunter, they can't find about that $300,000 kickback I got. You got to go down for a few
I've been
years.
I've been throwing the country under the bus, Jack, for about $250.
Hunter, you got to be the fall guy, man. The pliant media will love this.
Some of them were talking about that scene in The Godfather where they go like, you know, where they were talking about what's his face, the consigliere, Duvall's character meets the guy out in the prison, is just like, you know, you got to do the right thing here. And they're talking about Roman, you know, what Roman senators. But there it is, folks. That's their story, and they're going to stick to it until they come up with something better.
What a great misdirection.
Total. You know what's going to happen next? They're going to have the DOJ prosecute Jill Biden just to get people off the trail. Folks, I have, it has been, actually a revelation for me. I'm talking about Factor. We got warmer, sunnier days, and I've got to make dinner for my kids. I want them to eat well. I don't want to spend a fortune on takeout. And Factor is there for me. You can meet your wellness goals in time for summer. They've got a menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. I never had a microwave until a year ago. And I really still don't even know how to use it, except for I use it for my Factor meals. And it's fantastic. I want to thank Factor for supporting the Majority Report and also for allowing me to make meals that my son actually likes. But I don't really, when I say make, I take it out of the container, I put it on a plate, I put it in the microwave for about 2 minutes. What are you waiting for? You get started today and have a feel-good week of meals ready to go. Head to factormeals.com/majority50 and use the code majority50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. They have 35 different meals, 60 add-ons you can choose from every week, so you can get some staples that you need and cross off your shopping list. You can crush your wellness goals this May with the dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. Make your day delicious. They got breakfast, they got dessert. Stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. There's no shopping, there's no prepping, there's no cooking, there's no cleaning up. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat. Simply eat well balanced. It's amazing. I mean, like it's actually expanding my son's palate, which is not part of their pitch, but it is for me.
FDA hasn't tested those claims.
That my son's palate has been expanded.
Yeah.
He'll eat stuff now that I'm like, dude, do you like this, the look of this pasta with shrimp? Yeah. You do? Okay. Head to factormeals.com/majority50 and use the code majority50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code majority50 at factormeals.com/majority50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Link will be in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. Also, folks know that I'm a little sartorially challenged, but half my closet now is Rhone clothes. Rhone's commuter collection is the most comfortable, breathable, and flexible set of products known to man, and here is why. Rhone helps you get ready for any occasion with what they call the commuter collection. It has the world's most comfortable pants, dress shirts, quarter zips, and polos. You never have to worry about what to wear with the Rhone commuter collection. I've got a bunch of the dress shirts. They wear like athletic shirts. Or I don't know, like that's sort of like, I don't know what to call it. They call it the tech fabric or something. It's stretchy. It looks great. It doesn't require dry cleaning. And comes out of the wash, hang it up, no wrinkles. It travels incredibly well. I've now got the commuter pants, the commuter sport jacket, which now together is a suit, and the shirt. So my whole sort of like nice dress wear is the commuter collection. You feel incredibly comfortable in this stuff. Like I say, 4-way stretch. It has something they call Gold Fusion, which is an anti-odor technology. So you can wear these shirts, particularly when you're traveling. Sometimes I don't like to necessarily wash things too much. And you can ditch the dry cleaner altogether. The commuter collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to Rhone.com/Majority Report. Use promo code Majority Report to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/Majority Report and use code Majority Report. It is time to find your corner office comfort. All of those links will be in the podcast and YouTube descriptions and at majority.fm. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Judd Legum, proprietor of the popular information newsletter on Substack. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland out today. I want to welcome to the program, long overdue, probably was on the original iteration of the Majority Report, Judd Legum, proprietor of the popular information newsletter on Substack. And full disclosure, I am a subscriber to popular information. Really great reporting that you've been doing over there, Judd, over the past, I think it's about a year and a half now, I think, that you've been doing this. And it's been great, or it feels like it's been a year and a half. Has it been less?
It's actually been 6 years.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how I didn't see that. Well,
we're getting the word out slowly.
Yeah, no, that's the way I like to do that too.
Yeah.
I'm on year 20 and I'm trying to make sure that there's still potential audience out there.
Exactly. Don't want to burn through everybody right away.
I guess I've been following it for the past year and a half, 2 years, and it's been great. So appreciate the work you do. And this story, a couple of years ago, I had interviewed, I think, the writer of the ProPublica piece.
Yeah.
On this software, RealPage, but things have been happening apparently that I wasn't aware of since that story came out. First, tell us about RealPage, and then give us the timeline of what's been happening on that.
Yeah, and this was a story that was really broken open by ProPublica a couple of years ago about RealPage, which is a software program that is used by many corporate landlords, particularly any large building with a bunch of units. That's really what it's optimized for. and the landlords feed in all of the information well beyond what you could get, on Zillow or publicly available information, vacancy rates, what they're actually charging, all the fees, everything that there is. And then this program spits back out a recommended rent for that unit. But what's insidious about this process is that essentially so many corporate landlords are using it that they know that they don't need to go underneath that recommendation, because the building around the corner is also using RealPage and is also going to be using these prices. And what they've found is, since the corporate landlords have adopted this in large numbers, the rents have gone up and up and up and up. So that's essentially how the system works. Is that it's effectively collusion via software, where they're not sitting in a smoke-filled room fixing the prices of rent in a given area, whether it's Atlanta or Seattle or wherever it is, but they're doing so via this software algorithm.
And I got to say, I don't remember this element of the story until I read your piece on it. But there's also sort of like a mafia quality to this, where they say, look, if you're going to use this software, you cannot undercut the price that we give you, because then you're screwing up everything.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a big giveaway.
Yes, they have people who are monitoring it, who are making sure you're in compliance with their recommendations. And actually, if you price your apartments too low too many times, you'll get kicked off the system. And so we actually have learned a lot more in the last 2 years since that ProPublica story came out, because there's been a series of class action lawsuits. There's also been lawsuits filed by the attorneys general in DC and elsewhere too. So that process has started to reveal even more information about how the whole system works.
And you write that that it's deploying RealPage software in one case in Houston resulted in pushing people out with higher rents, but ultimately increased revenue by $10 million. So they're making a ton of money off of this, the landlords, but that's the beauty of price fixing, right? It's like, I know I can sustain this higher than market price if everybody sustains this higher than market price.
Yeah, and it's essentially gotten rid of negotiation. It used to be you could go to rent an apartment. They sell you, here's the price, $3,000 a month, whatever it is. You go into the rental office and you say, I'd really like to pay $2,900 a month. Now, part of that is there's a housing shortage, but the other part of it is RealPage has made it clear that you are not to negotiate these prices. And the corporate landlords can feel confident, because before they might know, well, if I won't give these people $100 or $200 off, they're just going to go around to a corner to another nice building, and those people will do it, and I'll be left with an empty unit. But they know if those people go 2 blocks down, they're going to run into the exact same pricing scheme and the exact same reluctance to negotiate under any circumstances. So that's really what's driving the prices up. There used to be a saying, get heads in beds. When you ran these big buildings, the idea is keep them full. But RealPage has kind of overturned that philosophy, and now they're really holding the line on prices, even if they have to keep a couple of units empty for a little bit.
You cite in one of those lawsuits, this one in Arizona, that in Phoenix, 70% of multifamily apartments units listed in Phoenix metropolitan area are owned, operated, or managed by companies that have contracted with RealPage. A lawsuit in DC, 60% of large multifamily buildings, 50 units or more, set prices using RealPage software. These numbers, I don't know. I mean, they may have gone up since then. And we don't really know. I mean, do we know, can we look at Boston, at New York, and at Dallas, Chicago? I mean, do we have a sense of just how ubiquitous this RealPage software is, or is it only piecemeal information?
Well, it's really piecemeal at this point because when their suits filed, they can do discovery, they can get information about what's going on. There are some ways to sort of to see and people have tried to collect data, but we don't have a full sense. We don't know what the full scope is. And by the way, there was a competing software company that had somewhat of a different approach to how it advised these corporate landlords to manage their properties. It was purchased by RealPage. So it's really the whole purpose of it. And they even say this in their marketing materials is you can charge more than the market price would bear otherwise, which is a pretty clear indication that you're doing something to subvert the actual competitive market. And this is in the context of a housing shortage, so the prices would be going up anyway. But the level of price increases that we've seen, especially in major metropolitan areas, has far exceeded even the inflation that we've seen in some other areas.
And like you say in the piece too, Jeffrey Roper, who created the RealPage algorithm, explained that, quote, if you have idiots undervaluing it, if undervaluing, in other words, undercutting what they have all sort of agreed they're going to charge, it costs the whole system. I mean, the idea that that's the whole, they've sort of given away the game at that point, right? Like, because the whole system, they're saying all these different landlords, they shouldn't be in a system. I mean, if it was up to me, maybe we would just nationalize some of these places or have the city or state take over, and then it would be a system. But there shouldn't be a private cartel, essentially, saying what undervaluing is at that point.
Yeah. And it works on so many different levels, because one of the ways that you used to be able to get a good deal on an apartment is people move in and out randomly. So at certain times, there might be a flood of apartments that become available just out of random chance. If you come in during that time, you might be able to get a good deal because all the buildings are competing with each other. But in addition to setting the prices at a high level and keeping them moving up and up and up, through the software, all the different buildings make sure that there's not too many units available at any given time. They'll hold them back so that it's always an artificially constrained market, which is pretty classic as far as if you're going to collude and price fix. That's what you might want to do.
So then cut to, I guess it was a week ago, the FBI does a raid, and this is now is antitrust always a criminal violation, or is it generally a civil violation?
It can be either, but from what we know about this investigation, this is a criminal investigation, a criminal antitrust investigation. And this Cortland, which is a major corporate landlord, it's based in the Atlanta area, owns a lot of property there, but actually owns property across 13 states. They were raided by the FBI. Now they've since put out a statement that says, "Oh, we're not the target; it's RealPage." That can always change. A lot of these lawsuits that have been filed by the attorney generals in D.C., Arizona have named some of the landlords that are using these as well. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I think it shows that this is something that's getting quite serious. This was an unannounced raid, because they showed up unannounced. So this is something that really is impacting millions of people, whether or not you live in one of these buildings that's controlled by RealPage. It's controlling so much of the market. It obviously impacts the prices, even in the few buildings that aren't controlled, or the ones that are owned by people who might own one or two properties. It's still inflating the prices upward. So it's something that's impacting a lot of people. And thankfully, it seems like the federal government is taking this pretty seriously at the moment.
What does it say that this was an unannounced raid? Cortland says we're not the targets here. Apparently, if we're to believe them, they're not necessarily going to say we are the targets, even if they were, or if it's right on the bubble. But what does it say that it was an unannounced raid? Is that just because Cortland has so many different units in so many different places that this is a way of accessing the software and how much data is in there? Because it's just a great example of what the software is doing?
Well, no, I think in order to get that approved, you have to go to a judge to get a search warrant approved. In order to get it approved that you're going to do it unannounced, you'd have to present some evidence that there's been efforts to cover up crimes. Now, it might not have been Cortland who done this. They may have, there might have been another landlord or RealPage itself, but they had to have some real suspicion that's grounded in something that if they told Cortland that they were coming, they were worried about evidence, being changed, destroyed, misplaced, etc. So it shows, RealPage knows they're under the microscope now, right? It's not a secret. They've got multiple class action lawsuits. They've got state attorney general. They know that this federal investigation is going on. So they're obviously trying to, keep themselves buttoned up for as well as they can. And I think the unannounced raid shows that the federal government is at least suspicious and has real grounds for that kind of suspicion.
What makes it a criminal investigation? What does it take to cross that threshold? Could it be in the sort of hiding and obscuring what they're doing in that regard?
Yeah, it's tough to say exactly. Since it's just an investigation and there's been no charges, it's tough to say exactly, what their theory of the case is. But in general, it would suggest that what's going on is with the intent to collude and to break the law, that they're not doing this by, accident, that it was just sort of set up. They set up this software and then all of a sudden things started going up, that this was their intent to do that. That's what it suggests to me. I think you'd have to look at, ultimately, if they are charged, whatever the indictment says as far as why this would be criminal.
What do you think the liability is for these landlords engaging in using this? Like, if it's one thing for if the RealPage knew, like, look, what we're doing here is we're just a couple of guys sitting in a room and basically acting as a conduit so that nobody has to talk to each other and we can evade the charges of collusion because nobody's even meeting each other except for we're basically being the proxies and agents for these people. But surely, somebody who owns this many units has the level of sophistication to realize, like, oh, wait a second, this is going to be helpful because they're not just giving us advice on how to price our things. I know how to do that. I've been doing that here. But they're changing the nature of what our competition is doing in a way in which we're all acting in concert. It seems to me there'd be some liability there. Like, because I wonder if people are like on their own dropping out of the RealPage system as a way of avoiding this liability.
There has been, in the case of these class action lawsuits, some settlements already where the individual landlords who are named are saying, okay, we'll pay, this much money and we want to be dropped for the suit. And that's been submitted to the court and approved. I think there's very substantial financial liability because if this was illegal, then whatever fruits of that illegality you can recover. And in this case, it could be, you'd have to look at the extent across all the states, but it could be tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in excessive rent, which would be, disgorged. It really, but ultimately, it would really put RealPage out of business, right? Because the whole business is to do this kind of, price fixing, what appears to be price fixing. And their liability would be huge, and also it's unclear how they continue even operating. So it's an existential threat to the company. I think people who need a place to live, which is most people, would actually benefit a lot from the company going away
I'm
because
excited about it.
because then they could maybe, negotiate their rent. I don't think you'd see rents plummet, but you would see downward pressure on the growth because you'd have some real competition again.
And is there a sense that maybe this software exists in other spaces that we're not aware of? I mean, I have a feeling RealPage, these executives are sitting there going like, maybe we shouldn't have tried to toot our horn so much a couple of years ago, whatever it was that turned that ProPublica writer on to what was going on. But I mean, do we know if, the way that these guys justify, it's just an algorithm, but you got to put all this data in that is, generally proprietary and not shared between competitors, but it ultimately benefited everyone in the end, at least in terms of the I mean, do we know that this doesn't exist with, well, airlines sort of have it, but I mean, other sectors of our economy?
It certainly exists in other sectors. It can happen in different ways. I mean, I think one place where it goes on all the time is Amazon, which is, not only has these third-party sellers, but also has its own products. It's constantly adjusting for each individual user every single price and maximizing, especially for its own products, the price that you're paying, knowing where what prices are being charged elsewhere. It also, I know Amazon in some of my previous reporting enforces a rule that they're tacking on all of these fees for the third party, but you can't offer a bottom line price that is lower than the price that you charge on Amazon.
Right.
So essentially, those fees have to be baked in no matter where you're buying it. So yeah, I mean, that's we could go on and on about this, but I think definitely this is a window into how sophisticated algorithms are used to exploit consumers throughout the economy and in ways that we are just beginning to understand.
Well, Judd Legum, I wanted to talk about, you had a piece today, I guess it was, maybe. The most recent piece on the incredible sort of like falling rates of crime that we have seen after a spike in 2020, although that spike was, sort of big for this era, when you compare it to 30 years ago. But we don't have time, but I would encourage people, we'll put a link to that as well as popular information on Substack. People can just also Google Judd Legum popular information. You'll find it that way. But we'll have a link in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. Really appreciate your coming and talking to us about this story. I think it's a really important story that's going way under the radar. And
we're going to keep following it. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thanks, Judd. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about the enormous amount of Republican money that seems to be being spent. And if you live anywhere near the Bronx, I mean, as far like north as Connecticut, northeast, I guess, of Connecticut, probably some in New Jersey, certainly up through Dutchess County, you have seen an enormous amount of advertising for George Latimer. And there's a reason why he's able to do that. And it's Republican money. We're going to be talking to Usamah Andrabi, communications director and spokesperson for Justice Democrats, in just a minute. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland out today. Want to welcome to the program Usamah Andrabi. He is the communications director and spokesperson for Justice Democrats. And Usamah, thanks so much for joining us. Let's talk about this race in New York 16 and start. I mean, this is part of a bigger phenomenon because we know, and I think this audience is familiar with AIPAC and its derivatives, DMFI and the United, I can't remember, Clean Skies Initiative name that they've given themselves, are just pumping extraordinary amounts of Republican money. And the race that's coming up is this one in 2 weeks in New York 16th Congressional District in particular. Jamaal Bowman facing basically Congress's next Joe Manchin, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, this guy is not just not progressive, but he's to the right of Joe Biden.
Yeah, absolutely. It is wild to see how much AIPAC is actually pouring into this district. It is at this point going to be more money than they've ever spent in a congressional primary. Right now they're at $13 million. And like you said, it's overwhelmingly, Republican money. Political story that came out this past weekend kind of showed that AIPAC is now the single largest source of Republican donor spending going into Democratic primaries. And they're doing it from all sides. That's just the money that, they bundled nearly $2 million for George Latimer. About half of that money has come from donors who give to Republicans. Then you have the United Democracy Project, their super PAC that they launched last cycle. 9 of the top 10 mega donors to that super PAC are Republican billionaires or Trump mega donors. You're talking about Bernie Marcus and Jan Koum and Paul Singer and Robert Kraft. And so what we are seeing really with AIPAC is exposing themselves for the deeply right-wing lobby that they are. And it's not just about Israel. It's not just about that Jamaal Bowman is one of the greatest champions of Palestinian rights in a ceasefire in Congress. But it's also that, these are billionaires at the end of the day whose profits and bottom lines are harmed by people like Jamaal Bowman, who are calling for a Green New Deal and are calling for taxes on billionaires. And then you have George Latimer, who, like you said, is truly trying to be the Joe Manchin of the House of Representatives, who, at this point, he's been asked 3 different times, hey, will you repeal Trump's tax cuts for billionaires and raise taxes on billionaires like Joe Biden supports? And he's like, no. 3 different occasions, and he can't do that. And you also see just how far to the right he is on Israel and Gaza, even for this district. Nearly 70% of this district supports a ceasefire, yet George Latimer has said nothing, and he can't even, say what Chuck Schumer has been willing to say, which is Netanyahu is a problem. And he's like, nope. So it is a historic amount of spending that's happening in this election, and it's a crisis not only for progressives in the future of our movement, but also for democracy. I don't think anyone wants to see, 12 mail pieces in their mailbox every day and, 10 ads every 30 minutes saying X, Y, and Z, and definitely not saying anything about Israel.
And I should say, you're not exaggerating in terms of those mailers and these ads. Like I have been struggling to think of another primary that I can remember where there's been A, this much money dumped into it, and B, the money so one-sided. I can't think of it specifically, but the idea of like 2 big fundraisers going at it, I feel like we've seen. But I don't recall a primary, and this is a blue district. There's really no chance of a Republican winning in this district. I can't recall this amount of one-sided spending, and particularly against an incumbent, a 2-term incumbent. It's a testament to Bowman not selling out in some respects, that he's not able to garner, but this is like, what is the spending? Do we even have like a notion of what is something like, it feels like it's 20-1 right now, if maybe more.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a fair fight. And it can't be a fair fight when you have progressive grassroots movement versus Donald Trump's donors, right? It's never going to be that. We're up against the same people who are spending millions of dollars to prevent Joe Biden from entering the White House. And so obviously it's going to be disproportionate. And you're seeing that. And the purpose is not to just win an election. The purpose is to, depress voters and decrease turnout and, just the opposite of what we need, what the Democratic Party should need come November, which is to turn out and engage young voters, progressive voters, Black and brown, and Democrats of color. And so AIPAC has kind of exposed itself once again that it's doing the bidding of, the Donald Trumps of the world. And it is a monumental amount of money that is being spent. AIPAC has never even spent this much money in a single Democratic primary, but we saw the previews of this even last cycle. Their super PAC didn't exist until last cycle, and they spent about $4 million in Summer Lee's primary, and Donna Edwards' primary, and Andy Levin's primary. And, we were on the ground in Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh, and we saw what that looked like. It was constant barrage of attack ads on television. Doesn't matter what you're watching, doesn't matter if it's a kid's show or if it's late night television, and you're getting like 10 mail pieces a day that put Summer Lee's face next to Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And so it's often disinformation. It's often racist dog whistles, which we've seen George Latimer lean into happily.
I've been shocked by the things that he has said in terms of race, frankly.
Yeah.
And shocked that there has been no condemnation of what he's saying from someone like Hakeem Jeffries. I mean, I understand, I don't have any illusions about Hakeem Jeffries, but how do you, as the Democratic leader in the House, allow a candidate in this primary to come out and say that the reason why Jamaal Bowman got elected is because Black people had too much access to the ballot because it was mailed to them? I mean, this is really bad stuff.
Yeah, it's a dereliction of duty, I think, on a lot of people's parts here. The just sheer amount of from dog whistle to unmaskingly overt racism that George Latimer has peddled, and he has a long history of it. We all know, George Latimer compared people calling for Andrew Cuomo to resign over sexual harassment allegations to the lynching of Emmett Till. So it's not wholly unsurprising that this man has a lot of racist things he wants to say, and he's been doing it. And, he is actively echoing the right-wing talking points of his donors, going on Trump donor radio shows saying, mail ballots and Black voter turnout after George Floyd's murder skewed results for Jamaal Bowman. He has said that Jamaal Bowman's constituencies are in Dearborn, Michigan, which is obviously Islamophobic attack on him. And his supporters have called Jamaal a thug, have said that he should have a stroke, that he's a liar, and he has said nothing about it. Instead, what George Latimer always does is tokenizes Black people in this district and his supporters and says, well, you know what? I hired a deputy and he's Black, and I grew up in a Black housing area and I have Black friends. And it is mind-boggling that we have not seen more condemnation or demands that his supporters and his endorsers condemn the kind of deeply racist sentiments that are coming out of him. And it's clear that he is running to represent only one small part of this district, and he's willing to kind of just show that voters in the Bronx and Black and brown voters throughout Westchester County are disposable to him.
Are there lessons from Summer Lee's fight against this type of onslaught that Bowman has picked up and is deploying in some way? I mean, this seems to me to be a race that's just going to be, if Bowman can pull it out. And I know and we'll talk about this poll in a second, but if there's a chance that he can, sort of like stem this tide, because honestly, I have a lot of people I know who sadly watch the Yankees. I'm a Red Sox fan. But they can't watch a Yankees game without getting like 40 pro Latimer ads. I know people who live in that district, and they're like, my mailbox, like literally, and I don't know if people realize it, but particularly up in the Bronx, like your mailbox is, it's like a little square like this. It's not like a big, there's no door slot, and there's no, and they're like, it's full every day with these mailers. What can they do? I mean, is it just a matter of like getting people out there and canvassing and making sure you get all your votes out?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it is overwhelming. And like I said, the goal of it is to depress voters, not to inspire them. And I think there's one thing that we learned from Summer's race that Jamaal and the campaign have been doing very well, which is, AIPAC runs a campaign of peddling disinformation and misinformation. And the greatest kind of tonic to that is to just expose the truth, right? And talk about the fact that the ads you're seeing on TV are funded by Donald Trump's mega donors and Republican billionaires. This PAC, AIPAC, endorses 109 Republicans who voted to overturn the election on January 6th. It endorses over 200 anti-choice Republicans who want to ban abortion. We talk a lot about our Democratic values being on the ballot in November, democracy and abortion rights, but they're on the ballot in every single one of these primaries, and they're going to be on the ballot in this primary on June 25th because that's who George Latimer has aligned himself with. It's deeply right-wing interests. And, we can't match the amount of money that Republican mega donors have, but we are putting up all of our resources in this movement to protect Jamaal, but it's about turnout. This race is about ensuring that every voter in this district is not depressed by these attack ads and instead are inspired by Jamaal's vision for the future of New York 16, that they all support a vision that, a Green New Deal, Medicare for all, universal child care. These are policies that are deeply popular within New York 16. And it's just about making sure that we go out and talk to voters one-on-one to make that message clear. And we're seeing that, obviously voters have these attack ads in their mind at the doors, and we hear that at the doors. And when we talk to them and explain these votes, explain what Jamaal has stood up for and what he's done with President Biden to deliver for this district, they understand that, and they understand that what they're seeing is disinformation. And so I think that's our path forward here.
And we should be clear that in terms of like the stakes outside of New York 16th, I mean, Jamaal Bowman's one of my favorite Congress people. And I'm in New York State, and obviously it's going to be a blue district, but the implication of this race nationally is that if Bowman can win this race, and I know they're coming after Cori Bush as well, but if they can win their races, it is a sign to other lawmakers that you don't have to be as intimidated by this huge onslaught of Republican money in a primary as you might otherwise be, because it's doable. You can win in these situations. I mean, that's the message that Summer Lee gave, and that's why this race is so important. And it works the other way, too. If they take out Bowman and or Cori Bush, they are basically signaling to other lawmakers, you don't want us to come after you, and they don't actually even have to deploy at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. AIPAC is desperate to make it seem like they've won this cycle when, what's very clear is from the start of this cycle, they wanted to take out the whole squad. That was their goal, $100 million to take out every member. And if, for those of us who follow, we saw that target list dwindle and dwindle over the few months when they realized they can't win these races. And there's nothing AIPAC hates more than admitting to an L, which is why, they don't. And so Summer Lee beat them. Rashida doesn't have an opponent. Ilhan is looking really good. And so now they're all in on Cori and Jamaal. And that's where we all have to be all in as well. Because absolutely, like you said, we've heard from so many members that other members have told them, we would say more on what's happening in Gaza and the genocide and call for a ceasefire, but we're too scared of an AIPAC primary. And, that's no way for our democracy or the Democratic Party to function, to operate from a position that we are too scared of a Republican-funded super PAC spending money against us in a Democratic primary. And so these wins are absolutely crucial, not just for progressives, but for everyone who doesn't want to see any politician, have their policies, have their interests be dictated by a dark money super PAC. And, AIPAC, there's always been a gap between Democratic voters and Democratic electeds. And I think we've seen that on this issue so deeply, where Democratic voters since November have overwhelmingly supported a ceasefire. They overwhelmingly support conditioning military funding to Israel. But AIPAC has turned that gap into a canyon. And it's up to us to bridge that gap and show Democratic electeds that they can reject AIPAC, they can reject AIPAC's endorsement, and donations, and we can all stand up. It's really up to them, just to say, fuck it, we're not going to do this anymore, and take a stand if they're willing to have the backbone. And we're so proud at JD to have folks like Jamaal Bowman and Corey Bush and Summer Lee and others who have always had that backbone to stand up to AIPAC, who are unwilling to sell out these sort of corporate right-wing interests to represent the values and interests of their voters.
Before we get to how folks can help, whether they are in the district or outside of the district, let's just talk briefly about this poll. Poll came out. I can't remember who did it. As far as I can tell, it's a fairly reputable outfit. Who is it? Oh, Pix 11. Well, I don't know who they hired to do their polling, but Emerson. So, okay, fair. Not necessarily the best, but it showed Bowman down. I think it was 16 points. There's a 5-point margin of error, but also there's a question is like, who's going to show up? I mean, we just had a special election in Ohio, which was a seat that was dominated by Republicans. Somebody resigned. I can't remember his name. And Brown or Bill Johnson. And he won by 30 points. Usually the Democratic challenger came within 10 points. And this was someone who was running sort of part-time because there was no serious sort of mechanism behind him. So we don't really know who's coming out. Particularly, this isn't a special election. It's a primary. But there's nothing else really on the ballot. I mean, and it's not like people are coming out and there's a presidential primary that is going to drive a lot of people. Maybe some people coming out to leave the ballot blank or whatnot. So we don't really have a good sense of who's coming out. That's why some of these and this race has a dynamic of a guy who's coming in trying to reach low information voters, and he probably is with all these mailers, but they're not necessarily the high propensity voters. And my gut instinct is that the high propensity voters, they're coming out for Jamaal Bowman. And I don't know how you capture that in a poll, frankly. But what's your sense of of what that polling shows or doesn't show?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you said. And I think really what that poll shows is, what kind of effect $12 million in, a month has on Democratic voters, right? It leads to this sort of effect where they are given misinformation, they are sold lies, and they're confused about what's going on. If you look at kind of the crosstabs of those polls, there's a lot of confusing contradictions in there that shows clearly that what we need to be doing is educating these voters about what's at stake here, who's in this race. And I think the biggest thing to take out of that poll is the fact that there's still 21% of these voters are undecided. After spending $13 million in a primary, you have 21% of voters undecided. Just shows that they're not buying the lies and they're not willing to kind of believe what they're saying about Congressman Bowman because they know who Jamaal Bowman is because he's from this community. And so I think for us, it's all hands on deck at these doors to mobilize, as well as, getting as much money behind paid media and ads as we can, but especially at these doors, because this race is going to be about turnout. It's ensuring that the core base of the Democratic Party that has so often been left behind by the George Latimers of the world are mobilized by the Jamaal Bowmans of the world to actually vote in this primary and send a working class champion like Bowman back to Congress.
How crappy of a product do you have to be that $12 million later, you still have that many sort of unconvinced people? I mean, because those are like, if you get 21%, I don't know, on something like this, that means that they theoretically are gettable. And they're probably low information type of voters on some level. And $12 million, you still haven't swayed them. So, okay, what's Justice Democrats doing? What are other outfits that are doing canvassing? How can people who are listening, if they're out of district, if they're across the country, how can they help? If they're within the New York area or within district, how can they help?
Yeah, absolutely. There's all of us, Justice Democrats, Working Families Party, Jewish Vote, Sunrise Movement, if not now, Jewish Voice for Peace Action. Everyone is out here kind of getting together in this final stretch to support Bowman to get reelected. And so everyone can go to bowmanforcongress.com and go to the volunteer page, and there's mobilized links available for weekly phone banks, weekly canvassing. That's what we need right now, is bodies at the doors and on the phones to kind of get this message out, and also to donate to the campaign to ensure that we can continue to get the message out from the campaign side as well. So those are the two biggest things. It's really just signing up for a phone bank shift, signing up to canvass if you're in the district or coming into the district to do that, and getting this message out that, you know, Republican mega donors are trying to buy this seat, and Jamaal Bowman is willing to stand up to them. That's why they're doing that. And so that's the full story here. And it's up to our movement and every single one of us to kind of come together to ensure that we reelect Jamaal.
All right. Well, we'll put links to that. And just a reminder, if you're out of district, if you're out of state, calling in, still very valuable. One-to-one conversation with people has been shown through studies to be much more effective than even an ad during the Yankees game or, 47 mailers in your mailbox. And particularly with a guy like Latimer. I mean, honestly, it's Joe Manchin times 2 with this guy. I mean, I don't remember Joe Manchin being so explicit about his racism. It's just unbelievable to me.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that's what voters are seeing. That large section of undecided voters is seeing that these attack ads are funded by Republicans, and are seeing that George Latimer is just a bad person. He does not care about the voters in this district. He's deeply racist. He has nearly $10 million in assets. And so it's no surprise that he doesn't want to raise taxes on millionaires and billionaires. And so he is clearly not representing or running to represent the interests or needs of the people in this district. And I think people are wising up to that after a long time in service for this career politician.
Usamah Andrabi, Communications Director, spokesperson for Justice Democrats. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Again, we'll put those links in the podcast and YouTube description and at majority.fm.
Thanks so much, Sam.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, head into the fun half of the program, wherein I will take your phone calls. I will read your IMs. If you are a member, you will have access to the IM feature on our app. If you are not a member, you can call in. If you are a member, you can call in. If you're watching us on Rumble, you can call in. If you are a diehard supporter of George Latimer's, you can call in. It of course, you'll get the Latimer special, which is $500,000.
I was going to say, if AIPAC gives you time off.
Exactly. Vergonia out the void. Folks, just a reminder, it's your support that makes this show possible. If you go to jointhemajority.report.com, jointhemajority.report.com, you'll have the opportunity to support this program. Someone just told me that there was some of our links were down for joining and becoming a sustaining member. We're working on that. We're fixing it. You'd think that we would have some of the basics down by now, but we're still getting there. We're rolling this out slowly.
You'll feel that much more satisfying when you do become a member.
Exactly.
You've had to go through a bunch of technical
Exactly.
problems.
We're not just taking anybody. We're still in soft launch.
You got to want it.
Soft launch. That's the way that we do this around here. 14 years. We do 15 years of soft launch. And then, so sometime in December of this year, of 2025.
That is what
2024. Yes.
Andy Kindler's Thought Spiral.
Yeah.
All of their episodes are called Test Episode. And they're like on Test Episode like 205.
We got to get him on. Yes, I'm going to do the Dreyfus story in the fun half. Definitely. 646-257-3920 is the number. JoinTheMajorityReport.com. Also, don't forget justcoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee and hot chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off, get the Majority Report blend if you want. And check out the AM Quickie. amquickie.com. 3 days a week. You get the headlines in your email box by 9 a.m. It's awesome. Awesome. It's my first, well, not the first thing I read in the morning because I'm starting to read before 9. But as soon as 9 a.m. hits, it's the first thing I read. Bradley, what's happening on ESVN?
On ESVN, Monday we recapped the NBA and NHL finals action, and we will definitely be doing so with the coming games on Monday. So we'll see how the Kristaps Porzingis injury timeline plays out now that we've got a little more information on his injury, and we also discussed a little bit more of the fallout from the U.S. women's Olympic team roster being selected and Caitlin Clark's omission, which has led to people going completely insane. So check out our prior streams and clips on youtube.com/ESPN show, and we will be back Monday at 4 p.m.
Matt!
Yeah, Left Reckoning last night had Ben Fong talking about the Odd Fellows. Also in the post-game, we talked about what Jimmy Dore fans are up to, which is harassing Jill Stein to go on the Jimmy Dore show. And Trump talking about boaters also. And a streamer meets his first Israeli after defending Zionism for months. So we talk about that. Patreon.com/leftreckoning.
Quick break. See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy.
Alpha males are back. Boy, back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy, back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflakes says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ Danner.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males.
Psych. Fuck them.